Hello, my name is Myra. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I am doing something that is extremely hard, which is narrowing down my 12 favorite books for 2025. The way that I did this though was I made it a little bit easier and also a little bit harder. And that was that I could only pick one book per month, and it had to be within that month. It was just extremely hard. So these are just based purely on the month that I read them. So those were the rules that I gave myself, and I only chose from that month. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into my 12 for 2025. Starting off with January, I have High Sticking the Heart by Marie Maravilla. You have Ariela and Dalton. Ariela is actually a sports coordinator, or like a workout coordinator, and she works with professional athletes. She helps behind the scenes getting these athletes into shape so that when they go into their sport, whether it's professional hockey or football or baseball, whatever it is, they are in their prime condition physically. And that is what she does for a job. She just moved into this new city. She's living with her cousin, and her cousin convinces her to go to this bar. It's this party where there's going to be professional athletes and other people in like the sports industry. And she ends up meeting this guy that she is like, oh, this guy is clearly an athlete. Like, she knows that he's an athlete, but she doesn't care to know who he is or what he's doing. And this guy tries to kind of come on to her, but she's not really paying attention to him until his horrible ex-girlfriend makes this appearance, and she can tell that she is trying to like put him down. And so Ariela, our FMC, is like, oh, actually, like, he and I are here together, so like, you know, kind of like, who are you type of thing, like, can you leave us alone, because like we're enjoying each other's company, which I love. I mean, savage, and I love that she stepped up for him. And Dalton, of course, is like, hey, thank you so much for jumping in, you totally didn't have to do that. And so they just kind of get to talking, you know, they get to talking, and they end up saying, hey, you know what, why don't we just get out of here and go get a bite to eat. They go, they get a bite to eat. They end up eating, I think, chilaquiles, which made me so hungry because they sounded so freaking bomb in the book. And after they eat, they end up sharing this like just nice evening, this nice night together. It turns out that she is actually the new sports coordinator for his hockey team. And so now when she comes in, she's like, shoot, that's the guy. So now that I know that he's in a team that I'm going to be coaching, he's off limits. I don't want anything to do with him in that way. And so the story just kind of goes on from there. But if you like a good sports romance, I think that you will definitely like this. Our FMC also, there is a scene where she takes these big, hunky, professional hockey players to a Pilates class, and they were struggling. And I love that. I just think it's hilarious. I've actually seen on TikTok that there has been professional teams. I think it was a professional soccer team that went to a Pilates class, and they were like complaining about how hard and how tough it was, and they gained a total respect for it. I myself have never done Pilates, but I would never say something is easy without me trying it. And even if I did, just because it's easy for me doesn't mean that it's easy for other people. I love the whole concept, and I love that that scene was in this book. So if you love a sports romance, definitely pick this one out. The book that I picked for February was actually Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. In this one, you have Scarlett and Lucas. Scarlett is a diver for Stanford University, and Lucas is actually a professional swimmer. He also is with Stanford, but he has competed in the Olympics. So think Michael Phelps. That is literally Lucas. And he is a Swedish swimmer. He's been professional. He's like super high up. People know of him. He's famous. And both of them obviously run in kind of similar circles just because they are athletes for this university. And she has always kind of had an attraction to him, but not in the way that she would pursue him or like actively pursue him. And she doesn't know, but Lucas has also been kind of intrigued by her. One day though, what turns everything around is that Lucas's ex-girlfriend is friends with Scarlett. She shares actually that she could never fully feel like she was satisfying Lucas's needs when it comes to adult activities, if you're catching my drift. Scarlett is like, that's interesting. Like, it kind of sounds like he might be into the same things that I'm into. One day they're all at a party, and Lucas's ex-girlfriend, which is Scarlett's friend, ends up saying, hey, actually, you two would be perfect for each other. Mind you, she's drunk. you two would be perfect for each other because you guys are literally both into the same things. And that is when Lucas and Scarlett find out that they're both into the same kind of kink and things when it comes to the bedroom. And so now it's just kind of been amplified because they've both already been intrigued by each other, but now that they both know this about the other person, they become a little bit more curious about each other. Also, Lucas and Scarlett do have a class together and they are also working together in that way. So they're just kind of spending a lot more time together. And, you know, she came off from like a diving incident where she's still kind of scared of doing really hard dives, and Lucas is kind of just known for his swimming, but no one's really bothered to get to know him. So you have these two characters that have other things going on, but they kind of find a relief with each other, and that is where the book goes from there. It's very light though, I would say, with like the kinks and stuff. It's very, I would say, beginner friendly. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's not like what I read from this book was like, oh my god, this is like so crazy. But if no one's ever read anything like that, then maybe they would think that. But I actually felt like it was very light and not at all like scandalous or crazy. So yeah, I would pick this one up, especially, again, this one's kind of also sporty. So if you like that, if you love swimming, I love watching swimming and swimming competitions on the, like, in the Olympics. So I think if you really like that as well, you would really enjoy this story. And for March, I picked Filthy Rich Fae by Geneva Lee. And in this one, you have Kate and Lachlan. So Kate is this nurse and she is working in the ER. She's always dealing with really you know, intense and critical cases. And the family that owns the city where Kate works is very like rich and powerful, but no one really knows this family. There's a lot of mystery, but it's not a secret that they definitely control like the police department. Like they have police department in their pocket. She knows that the hospital also covers a lot of incidents that have to do with employees that work for this family. So she just knows and thinks that this family is really bad news. One day her brother ends up coming in and he has suffered a gunshot wound, and she is like, what the heck, like what happened? And she finds out that her little brother is working with this family. She's like, there is no way, like I am not gonna let him be involved with this family. And she goes to try to see if she can get a word in with Lachlan, which is the head of the family, to try to basically say, hey, whatever you have my brother doing for you, take me instead, like I'll do it for you, but leave him alone. Because she does not want her brother to be running with like a criminal activity or like a criminal family. And when she goes, she ends up meeting Lachlan and they strike up a deal. Lachlan is actually Fae, and not only is he Fae, but he's pretty much Fae royalty. So they do travel back and forth within realms. So there's a regular human realm that everybody knows, and then there is the Fae realm. So I did think that that was really unique in this story. The Fae can kind of go from the human realm, which is what we all know, into the other kind of dimension, which would be the Fae realm. And they don't really live in the Fae realm, they live in the human realm. And most of that is because there's a lot of rivalry for territory. So picture like the Fae owning North America, right? But in real life, in the human realm, there is, you know, the US, and then there's Canada and there's Mexico. But in the Fae realm, maybe they own all of North America. So that's kind of how the world works in this book. And when she finds out that he's Fae, she's like, what the heck? Like, I did not even expect this. And she kind of just ends up getting super involved. There's a lot that's happening behind the scenes. And it was a really great first book. Second book is out now, and I actually did listen to the second book now. And I think there's maybe gonna be 2 or 3 other ones. But if you've also read Filthy Rich Vampires by Geneva Lee, there is a little bit of connection, especially when you meet Lachlan in this book. You might have heard of the Fae realm or like the Fae, and I think the 4th book of Filthy Rich Vampires. So I do like that they're all kind of loosely connected, and I'm curious to see if there's going to be more connections as the series goes on. Turn things around completely. For April, I went ahead and picked Sawyer by Jessica Peterson. And this one you have Sawyer and Ava. Sawyer is a single dad. He is the 3rd brother of the series. So this is already a continuing series. Every single brother is going to have their own book. And Sawyer is a single dad. He has a 3, I think, or 4-year-old. and he's been on his own raising her and trying to be the best dad that he can. And on the other hand, you have Ava. She is a single mom. She has divorced her husband, and she just looking for a new beginning, is looking to raise her daughter well and try to provide for her daughter. One day, Sawyer and Ava both get convinced separately by their friends to go out and just have a good time, and they go to this random town, and they happen to both be there at the same time, and Sawyer and Ava meet, and they instantly click. They end up spending a beautiful and also very hot night together, and they just don't exchange names, they don't exchange where they live, they don't exchange phone numbers, nothing. And it was magical. They both can't stop thinking about it. But now it was like, listen, that was fun, I need to move on. And Sawyer is like, I need to move on, but also I can't get her out of my mind. And little do they know that Ava is the new trainer that is working at the rival ranch for where Sawyer's family lives. Sawyer and his brothers and dad, they all run this ranch, and she is working for this rival ranch, and they have no idea. They end up meeting because their daughters are around the same age, and when they run into each other, she's like, oh my god, here's this guy that I had an amazing night with, and now it turns out that our daughters are going to the same school, they're involved in the same program. I'm gonna be looking at him or like running into him in this small town. Where do we go from here? And it was a great story. And listen, Sawyer is the type of husband or the type of dad that I would want my partner to be. The way that he is with his daughter is absolutely beautiful. I'm not someone that typically looks for single parent romances or that loves children in books generally, but this book was so sweet and so heartwarming, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. If you're looking for a cowboy romance, if you love single parents, this is like literally the book for you. Then in May, freaking adore this book, I picked Be With Me by Gabrielle Sands. This indeed is the arc. I ended up winning it in a giveaway, and I got the whole PR box, and I was so over the moon excited. I loved this book. If people ask me for a mafia romance book, I will recommend this book. I will actually recommend everything that she's written, because her worlds, her mafia worlds, are good and they're fun, and you have everything that you want in a mafia, which is this strong, powerful man that is brought to his knees by a strong, powerful heroine. That is exactly what I love in my mafia or like cartel romances, and that is exactly what this book is. This one too, you have almost like a Romeo and Juliet inspired issue. This one you have Mia and Romolo. Mia is actually the daughter of the guy who is running to be governor of New York. And the way that he's been promoting his campaign is, listen, I am going to bring down crime in New York. I am going to go after these families. And one of the families that he's constantly calling out is the Ferraro family. And it just so happens that our FMC is Romolo Ferraro. And the reason why he wants to bring this family down is because although on the surface and like for as far as people know, the Ferraro family is just really rich because they have these legitimate companies, they own these businesses, so they are extremely wealthy. This guy that is running for governor, aka Mia's dad, is telling people they are making their money through illegal ways. Also, it's not all legit. I can prove it, and I will prove it, and I will bring them down. So little by little, he has become a problem for the Ferraro family. And so the Ferraro family is like, we don't know where this guy got this, you know, kind of motive to come after us, but we can't let him continue this. And if it gets to be out of hand, we might have to take care of him. And one day, Mia and Romolo have this run-in, and at first Romolo doesn't know who she is. And then he finds out who she is, and he's like, okay, I can maybe use her to get through to her dad and find out what his issue is, how much exactly he knows about this family, and if he's an issue, that way we can get rid of him. And Mia, though, she's not done. She's like, I know exactly who you are, and I know exactly that your family, there's more than meets the eye. And if you think, I mean, she's thinking all this. If you think, Romolo, that you can use me to try to get to my dad, good luck. That's not gonna happen. But these two have to kind of work together, and there's like run-ins that they're having, and they're getting to know each other, and she's seeing other sides of him that no one actually has ever seen. There's also a lot of trauma that Romolo has experienced in his life that no one else knows, that Mia ends up finding and is helping him with. And it's deeply emotional and it's good, and it had like a layer of depth to these characters. And she's not just a daddy's girl. There's actually a lot of ways in which her dad is kind of just using her to look like a devoted and great father, but is he really like not 100%? And so yeah, I really love this. And I think that if you love mafia, definitely check out Gabrielle Sands. And this is actually the perfect time to pick up Be With Me, because Marry Me Not is coming out in January, and when I tell you, I cannot wait to read that book. It's gonna be great. I already know. It's gonna be Romolo's brother, who does not want to get married, but now that he's like the head of the family, has to. For June, I have Shield of Sparrows by Daphne Perry. When I tell you I inhaled this book, I did. And it's not like a super thin book. It's actually a pretty thick book, but I absolutely loved it. I was listening to it and I was reading it also physically, and when I wasn't reading it, I was thinking about it because I was just absorbed into the story. This book, you have Odessa, who is the daughter of a king, and this king wants to establish this alliance with this other kingdom, which is pretty popular with a lot of like kingdom and like royalty type books. But the prince actually doesn't know what Odessa looks like, but Odessa is actually not the one that's marrying the prince. It is her younger sister, which is kind of interesting. And Odessa doesn't really know if she should be offended that her dad didn't pick her and instead picked her younger sister. But she's like, hey, if my younger sister is the one that has to get married and like is gonna form the alliance, like it kind of sucks, but also in a way it's a good thing that I don't have to, because maybe that'll mean that I can actually, you know, meet my future husband or decide who I want to marry and be happy, and I don't have all these other responsibilities. This is all great until the prince that this alliance is going to be formed with comes over. He tells the king, actually, I don't want to marry your daughter that I was set to marry. I want to marry Odessa instead. And Odessa's like, wait, what? And then the dad is like, excuse me? Like, no, you are going to marry my younger daughter. That is who we said that you were going to marry. And the prince is like, what's the problem? Like, both of your daughters are unmarried. So what's the problem with me wanting to marry Odessa, which is your oldest daughter, instead of the younger daughter? And the king doesn't really have a choice. If he wants this alliance, and he really wants this alliance, he's gonna have to have Odessa marry into the kingdom. Except this whole time, Odessa's sister had been training to basically become a spy for the kingdom. King does have an ulterior motive of why he wanted the younger daughter to do it, and he pretty much didn't think that Odessa would be somebody that would be capable of doing it. Which Odessa's like, are you kidding me? Like, that's messed up. And now I have less than 24 hours to try to get as much training and advice as I can before I get on this ship and I embark to my new husband's kingdom. Which there are so many secrets about the kingdom. A lot of people don't know what makes them so powerful, which is actually one of the main duties and one of the main things that her dad wants her to find out. Odessa embarks on this journey with the prince, and also with the prince is the guardian. And the guardian and her do not get along. They are constantly bickering, but the guardian is also in charge of keeping her protected and keeping her pretty much out of harm's way. I mean, she is the prince's new wife, and also he has a feeling that Odessa's probably kind of spying on them, and so he's trying to also make sure that she's not finding out too much information, because they can't trust her. Just because she's married to the prince doesn't mean that they can fully trust her. And so the story just kind of goes on from there. Odessa does find out a lot of information. The way that this book ended was absolutely brutal. I will be rereading this book before the second book comes out next year, which I think it's in April of 2026. But if you're looking for a fantasy book, definitely pick this one up. You're also at the perfect time to pick this one before the second book comes out. But I devoured it and I loved it, and there's plot twists and there's things that you're like, wait, what? I did not know that that's what it was. So yeah, it was really fun. It was also really emotional, so just know that. But it was a great read. For July, I went ahead and picked Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. And this one you have Maya and Connor, and this is an age gap romance, which a lot of people were kind of having an issue with, but I really like the way that this book was written. If anything, I think their age gap and the fact of how okay their age gap was mentioned a little bit too much. But I do kind of understand, because you have Connor, who is like in his later 30s, and Maya, who's 23. So the age gap is pretty significant. The way that they go about this age gap, though, I think was really tastefully done. I think Ali Hazelwood did a really good job with it. But you have Maya and you have Connor, who have known each other for a while, because Connor actually is Maya's brother's best friend. And so they've known each other for a really long time, and they're all together in, I think, Italy, because her brother is about to get married. And so obviously Connor is part of the like groomsmen. He's in the wedding party, as is Maya, and they're spending all this time together. But as they're spending this time together in this city, also flashbacks, and you end up finding out that there was a kind of time where Maya and Connor were spending a lot of time together. Not only that, but also Maya and Connor were pretty much in communication for a really, really long time. And that's really how their friendship first developed. And after their friendship, it kind of turned into something more. And so I just loved it. I thought it was beautifully told. And also, I read this book extremely fast. I read this book on my way to Hawaii. I think I got to like more than 50% done on the way there. When I was in Hawaii, within like my free time that I had, either like before going to bed or at the beach, I absolutely inhaled it and finished the rest of this book. So I think this is a perfect book for the summer. And if you love a good age gap book, you would definitely really, really like this. Then for August, I guess I'm kind of cheating, because this is a bound up book of both ones, but it is the Los Diablos Motorcycle Club series by Jade Hernandez. So this is a bound up of the two books, but you have Ink and you have Miguel. So in the first book with Ink, you have Ink and Xiomara, and in the second book, it's Miguel's book, you have Miguel and Miss Lorena. So with Ink and Xiomara, Ink owns a tattoo shop, which makes sense, right? Ink. So Xiomara is always struggling to hold a job. She just got fired, but she really, really needs money for her and her mom. And her friend ends up putting in a good word with Ink and saying, please try my friend Xiomara. You're not going to regret it. She's going to do great. And so Xiomara is now in charge of essentially being the receptionist at this tattoo shop. She has to be keeping appointments. She has to be confirming appointments with clients and making sure that, you know, taking care of walk-ins, answering the phone, etc. And Ink does not like Xiomara. He's like, this girl is trouble. I'm pretty sure she's not gonna last, but whatever, I'll do this favor. I'll hire her, I'll have her here, but if not, I'll fire her if I have to. Now, there is an incident that happens, there's some double booking that happens, and he ends up telling her, you're fired, you're out, get out of here. And Xiomara's like, it wasn't me, I swear. And he's like, don't lie, you're fired. And so he fires her. He is completely rude to her when he fires her, and he ends up finding out that it actually wasn't Xiomara's fault, that she was telling the truth, and that he pretty much fired her without any real reason to fire her. So now he has to get on his motorcycle and apologize to Xiomara and see if she will come back and work for him. And Xiomara can't really be too prideful, because she does need a job, and so she ends up accepting the apology and ends up going back to work for him. And because this is a motorcycle club series, so they do have run-ins with the law. There's a lot of legal things that they do, but there's also a lot of kind of illegal things that they're also doing. And so she ends up kind of having a run-in and ends up having to deal with a lot of the issues that are actually motorcycle club issues, but now that Xiomara is working with them and working for them, she's kind of getting involved. Ink ends up getting more protective of Xiomara, and then little by little, they kind of form a romantic connection. With Miguel's book, Miguel ends up finding out that he randomly has a son. He has no idea that he had a son, but he did kind of, you know, have a little bit too much fun with a lot of women. So he's like, it's not really a shock that I would get somebody pregnant. And so now he has to figure out, like, how the heck am I gonna be a dad? Like, how am I gonna be a good dad? And the first thing that he has to do, of course, is enlist his son in school. His son is, I think, 5 years old or 6 years old. And when he goes to take his son to the first day of school, he is like, oh my God, my son's teacher is freaking hot. And he starts to pursue her, and she's like, listen, like, you're good looking and I'm flattered, but I am not going to get involved with my students' parents. Like, that is not something that I'm going to do. I care too much about my profession. I care too much about my students to get involved with the parent. Except other things that happen and start happening in the book ends up forcing them to kind of spend a lot of time together and get to know each other. And Miss Lorena might just, you know, give in. So that was Los Diablos Motorcycle Club books. For September, I have Sex, Lies, and Sensibility, and in this one you have Nora and Bear. Nora's dad has just passed away, and she ends up finding out that she has basically half sisters, and not only that, but her mom was pretty much the other woman. And she is like, who was my dad? Like, did I even know him? Like, I don't even know what this means. And she also finds out that now her family doesn't have any money because his main wife, or actual wife, is pretty much saying, you guys aren't getting anything. The only thing that you guys are going to get is this run down in that honestly we can just buy from you because you're not going to be able to run it anyway. And they're like, nope, wait a second, we are going to do it. We're going to raise the money that we have to because it's severely back paid, so they own a lot of money. And Nora is like, nope, I'm going to figure this out. So Nora goes to see this inn, and she is like, oh my god, it is in horrible condition. But she ends up meeting Bear, and Bear is living on these native lands that has this connection also with this inn. And he is like, listen, this inn has been abandoned. This is what I use for my tours. Like, we make money off of this. And Nora's like, well, not anymore. Like, I am taking this over because I need to raise money for the things that I need to do. And Bear is like, no, 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 like, let me help you. Like, we can partner up with this and it'll benefit us both. And so they both end up kind of forming this alliance. And there's a lot of things that Bear is also going through. There's a lot of things that he carries on his shoulder, and his town and his people really kind of have this really high respect for him, but there's a lot of secrets and a lot of things that people don't know about him that brings a lot of shame to him. But Nora and Bear are spending all this time together, and they're really getting to know each other, and it was just it was a great book. It was beautifully written. It dealt with a lot of really real topics and talks about native land and people just colonizing and taking over your lands and taking over, you know, your things, and saying like, oh, here's like scraps of this so that you're better off now. And it's not really better off. It's actually quite sad. And so I really appreciated that from this book. And there's also a scene that I actually brought up to Nikki when I met her at SeeMeLitCon, and I was like, the hair braiding scene. And she's like, I know what you're talking about. Like, and I'm like, yeah, no, seriously. I was listening to the book and I was like, she doesn't even know. I'll let you read it. I'll let you figure it out yourself. But anyway, that was that one for September. October, I listened to A Caribbean Heiress in Paris, which has Luz and James. Luz is this Caribbean princess, and she goes to Europe, and she's basically trying to figure out if she can get people to invest in her family's rum business. Her dad has just passed away, and so she's trying to, you know, expand the business, and nobody's taking her seriously. This is a historical romance, so they're not taking a woman seriously because, oh yeah, right, a woman can't run a business, blah, blah, blah. But she ends up meeting James, and James is completely enraptured by her because not only is the rum really, really good, but she is very, very smart when it comes to business. She has all these amazing ideas, and also he's physically attracted to her. I mean, he's a man, okay? He's a man. He's physically attracted to her as well, but he's also extremely, extremely attracted to her brain. He just thinks it's like the sexiest and hottest thing ever. And listening to that, and I was just like, that's right. That's right. We're so smart. Like, we women are super smart. Thank you for recognizing it, James. But anyway, in this book, Luz can't fully take over her inheritance money because it is under somebody that her dad appointed, and so she's trying to get this guy to release the funds. But the way that he's going to release him, of course, is if she gets married. But Luz does not want to get married. She does not want a husband because she knows that if she gets married, she's gonna be stuck. All of a sudden, her money is going to be her husband's money, and now she's going to have no say, no nothing. But then she finds out that James is kind of in a similar predicament where he really needs a wife. And so they both end up kind of forming this alliance of, look, why don't we get married? I will help you get your money, James tells Luz. I'll help you get your money, and then you help me by being my wife, because then I'll get access to something else that I really, really need, and then we can both go our separate ways. And that's all fine and dandy, except that, of course, you guys, they get to know each other. And there's this attraction, and this book, it's a historical romance, but if you think that historical romance books cannot be hot, you're wrong. You are wrong. This book was, whew, I was in my car and I was like, let me turn on my AC real quick because oh my God. And I love that Luz knows exactly what she wants and she's not afraid to ask for it, you know? So definitely pick this up. There's, I think, 2 other books that are connected to the series and that are after this book, and I cannot wait to read those as well because Adriana Herrera. And for November, I went ahead and picked the book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole. This is the first book in a series. There's now 4 total books out. There's, I think, going to be 2 more, and that's going to conclude the series. I think the next book will definitely be coming out, I think, in 2026, and then maybe the book after that, or like the last book, I think will be coming out in 2027. I think that that's kind of how it's going to be. But anyway, in this book, you have Diana, you have Liam, aka Sam Kill, and you have Caden. So already when you open this book, Diana's beating somebody up, okay? She's beating somebody up, and you find out that she's trying to get more information about where the book of Azrael is. And the reason why she's trying to get this book is because Caden, aka the person that created her and gave her all this magic, is after the book. She doesn't really know what is in the book, if the book exists, is kind of a myth, and she doesn't know why Caden wants it so much. She just knows that he wants it, and so she has to get it for him. Caden is this being that has a lot of power and has a lot of control over people because so many people are scared of him. The way that he kind of manipulates Diana is that Diana has a sister, and when her and her sister, years and years ago, they were struggling, her sister was pretty much dying. She begged for someone, anyone, to give her sister life. And so Caden ended up doing that, but in exchange, now Diana has to be pretty much working for him. But she doesn't just work for him in like the sense that she's like the one that goes to kind of be his enforcer, but he also, like, she's kind of in a way his lover as well. Even though they don't really have a romantic connection, it's mainly physical, but Diana has to basically be doing his bidding. Just because she does it, you know, his bidding though, does not mean that she is fully controlled or she doesn't have a say. She does. Unfortunately though, because of her sister and because anytime that she starts to kind of get out of line, Caden is kind of manipulating her by threatening her sister, Diana's sister's life. So she does kind of have parameters. So it is kind of, you know, he is kind of controlling her, and it does suck to read, but she is still a very, very strong being. One day though, on her search for the book of Azrael, she ends up having a run-in with a celestial, and he ends up unaliving himself in front of her because the celestial doesn't want Diana to be able to get a hold of his power or more information. And when that happens, she's completely surprised that he like unalived himself before she was able to try to get into his mind. But Caden is actually like, Diana, what did you do? Because it turns out that Liam, aka Sam Kill, is gonna come back because he is the god of all gods. He is the only immortal being, and the celestial was actually one of his people. Now he's finding out that something is going on, and Caden was trying to run all of this kind of behind the scenes without anyone knowing. But now that the god knows, it's of course going to become a problem for Caden. And so they kind of end up having this run-in, Diana and Liam, aka Sam Kill. And Liam captures Diana. And now Diana is like, I need to get out of here. I need to get back to Caden and also my sister. And there's so many things that happen. I've talked about this book, but this is just the first book in a series. I absolutely liked it. There was also a lot of heartbreaking, crazy things that happened in this book. So yeah, you definitely go on quite the adventure, and this is just the first book. So I cannot wait to read the rest of the books for the series. I'll be reading probably a book a month to follow up with this one, but I had to pick the book of Azrael for the month of November. Lastly, for December, I had to, okay? Brimstone by Callie Hart. I started listening to this at the very end of November, finished it at the beginning of December. Loved it. I thought it was an amazing continuation to the story. There's a lot of things that happen and also like a lot of things that don't happen, but I really liked it. I felt like it was perfect. There's still things that are happening. The story is still progressing. And let me tell you, the cliffhanger at the end of this book, absolutely brutal. That's all I'm gonna say. But if you don't know, Brimstone is the follow-up book to Quicksilver. Quicksilver, you have Ceres and you have Kingfisher, and Ceres is living in like this ward that is really, really poor. Pretty much the wards, as they go on, they kind of get like the leftovers of all the other wards, and she happens to live in one of the poorest one. It's pretty common for people to die of hunger, die of thirst, because her rations are so small. And the way that she's been getting around and being able to stay alive for as long as she has is that she is really, really good at stealing. So she's really good at being methodical in the way that she steals, the way that she turns things into objects. But that's the thing. A lot of people don't know that she is an alchemist. And so she has been able to turn things into like cups and other things that she can then try to sell and try to make some money to keep her and her brother alive. Though she ends up stealing from one of the guards from the court, and so of course the queen brings her in to try to punish her and make her an example that you do not mess with the kingdom and that you do not mess with the queen. Queen doesn't know though that she is an alchemist, and she ends up manipulating it so that the Quicksilver pool opens, and she doesn't know that the Quicksilver opening means that now these portals to these other realms are open, and one of the portals that is now open is the Fae realm. Now Ceres grew up knowing that Fae were like these people that used to eat human, but she thought that that was all just tales that you tell kids to scare them, and she doesn't know that the Fae realm is very, very real. This being emerges from the Quicksilver pool and ends up taking Ceres to the Fae realm, and now Ceres is forced to have to do this bidding for the Fae realm. She has to create these relics because it turns out that the Fae have been at war for a very, very long time, and now Ceres can't go back to the human realm until she basically completes her tasks of like making all these relics. And she's very, very urgent to go back home because her brother is there. She doesn't know if the queen is going to retaliate against her brother. And of course, while all of this is going on in the Fae realm, she's getting to know Kingfisher, and there's all this like back and forth. Kingfisher is such a jerk to her, and it's great. It's a great book. This is book 2. It picks up there, and I would highly, highly recommend this book. These were the 12 books that I picked for 2025. Let me know if you also read any of these books, if any of these were your favorite, or if you haven't picked up any of these, let me know if you'll be picking up any of them. But thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.